Corrupt Authority by yours truly. The brothers followed Ein to a contained room, where there were monitors on the wall displaying the hallway they had just traversed. Nobody was currently in the room, although there was a Team Rocket admin jacket draped over one of the chairs. Hibiki guessed it was Basho's. Ein placed his Master Ball on the security guard table and looked at them both, though mostly at Kenta. "In a moment you can let her out," he said solemnly, "and she will not attack you, at least not physically, but she will look straight into your soul and tell you things you may not want to hear." Kenta motioned for Hibiki to sit down, as he did himself the same. He looked up at Ein with wonder, and Hibiki could tell that he was impressed. "I don't know what incredible algorithm you must have used to locate Ho-Oh, let alone get near enough for a capture," he uttered. "But whatever your past, I will hold you in highest esteem for this feat." "Don't flatter me," Ein rebuked angrily. "This experience has utterly changed who I am. Even a staunch man of science can be shaken when forced to confront his conscience, and this second time was far greater than the first with Wes. I warn you now, Kenta, do not take her lightly. She is a goddess of this world, and not meant to be confined in any sort of prison. I regret what I have done, but I cannot undo it now." Was he really a scientist? Hibiki wondered, as Ein ranted and raved almost to the point of madness. He sounds more like a monk coming out of a vision. Ein turned and opened the door. "I'll be waiting outside," he said. "This is between you and Bell now." The door closed behind him. Hibiki and Kenta looked at each other. "Zapdos is on standby, right?" Hibiki asked, feeling the hint of a shiver down his spine. "Always, but I don't think it will be necessary for this," replied Kenta, reaching out his finger towards the Master Ball's release button. Just inches away from it, he wavered, and Hibiki saw that his hand was shaking slightly. Kenta took a deep, shuddering breath and let it out. "Still not fully prepared mentally. There's no getting used to this." He gave Hibiki a glance over his shoulder. "Mind your distance, bro. If Ein's telling the truth, as I suspect, this room's about to be filled by a very large bird." With that, he touched the button and leapt back. The room was immediately bathed in the white light of Pokeball energy being released, but it didn't stop there. A warm, honey-colored light filled Hibiki's senses, and bright as it was, he could still see through it. Lying on the ground before him was a 7-colored phoenix, predominantly gold, but exhibiting a permanent rainbow in its long tail plume. As Kenta had suspected, the creature was enormous, taking up nearly a third of the room all by herself. The countenance on her face was fierce upon first impression, but to those who could endure her gaze long enough, there was a gentle benevolence behind it. Hibiki felt a sudden urge to kneel before her in reverence. Now he understood why Ein had acted the way he did. You couldn't stand in the presence of this glorious bird and not feel your own sin and dirtiness. "Ho-Oh, Bell." Kenta had removed his cap and was staring at the phoenix. Wonder was in his voice, and he shrank a little as her gaze fell upon him. "Are you... that is to say, have we met before?" Hibiki wondered if he was talking to himself, until he heard a flowing, disembodied female voice answer. "We do not know each other," came her rich voice, "but we know of each other. You are the one the humans call Gold, are you not?" Kenta nodded, keeping his head low. "There is gold here. Indeed, one with a heart of gold. But it is not you." Bell's fierce expression did not change, but the subtle undertone indicated sadness and disappointment. "I know very little of your past, trainer, but I see your heart at present, and I perceive only tarnished bronze. I wonder what must have happened for you to make yourself this way." Kenta's face went red with shame, and he averted his eyes, no longer able to endure the stare of the phoenix. "I won't make excuses," he said quietly. "It's true that I've gotten my hands dirty for the sake of my goal." Suddenly, he raised his head, again meeting the legendary Pokemon eye to eye. "But I won't apologize either. My enemy kidnapped the Pokemon I loved most, and I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. If you really can see into my heart, you already know how far I'll go to get Baku back." Belle closed her eyes. "The strivings of those with corrupted hearts concern me little. It is said that anyone who sees me will have eternal happiness. But that is only because I am drawn to people who already have indwelling joy." She renewed her stare upon Kenta, and Hibiki could practically sense the weight of the judgment. "You perverted the natural order when you sent out people to catch me in your prison ball. Oh yes, I sense your guilt for that, and other things. I would forgive you, yea, pity you, if you were sorry, truly sorry. But even now, your heart hardens." Hibiki could see Kenta's face darken with anger, much like Basho's had been just minutes ago. He could tell that the Phoenix was not mocking his brother, nor trying to incite his fury, despite how it might have sounded in any other context. But she was confronting him with the bare, naked truth, and Kenta's long-subdued agony of doubt was finally rising to the surface. Indeed, he had done things that, while terrible, were justifiable. Hibiki had been there to comfort him every time afterward. But for as long as he was in the presence of the Phoenix, Kenta would not be able to block out the hounding of his own black deeds. The people he had lied to, the Pokemon he had stricken down, the innocents that he had sometimes insulted, sometimes terrorized, the felons he had aided, the one man he had recently mutilated. All of it surged to the forefront. Kenta's current anger was not directed at Ho-Oh. It was against himself and what he had become. "Belle!" Hibiki croaked the name out hoarsely. The Phoenix's gaze turned upon him, and it was gentle and benevolent again. "Please stop," he begged, looking over at Kenta as he pulled at his hair in torment. "Why are you doing this?" "It is not my intention to cause suffering, Heart of Gold," she answered sadly. "But like you, I am a created being, and I am fire, sacred fire. I exist to serve as a litmus for purity, for it is not relative as people think. Those with impure hearts cannot abide me, nor I them, and so I have kept my distance until that choice was denied me." "Pure heart?" Hibiki stopped as a realization struck him. "You called me Heart of Gold, but how am I different than Kenta? I've done bad things too." "Nevertheless, there is a Heart of Gold within you," replied Belle solemnly. "And not just you alone, but a small collection of similar people, all with that same heart." Kenta was breathing hard, and he passed a hand over his face. "I have to go," he murmured suddenly, and turned and jerked the door open. Alarmed, Hibiki twisted around in his chair and held out a hand to stop him. "Wait!" But Kenta turned away. "I'm sorry," and he shut the door firmly behind him. There Hibiki found himself, alone for the first time in a long time, sitting in a small room with one of the greatest Pokemon in the world directly across from him. His mind refused to work, and he could only whisper urgently to himself as he forced thoughts to come through. How did it come to this? Come on, Hibiki, think. Okay, we came to check down here for a reason. Kenta was looking for a way to get the Master Balls into the Pokemon League undetected, and then he wanted to know if any of the organizations had succeeded in catching a legendary Pokemon. Pokemon League? Master Balls? Belle's voice sounded again, and there was a note of surprise in it. You have more? Hibiki looked at her curiously. Yes? Wow, even legendary Pokemon are amazed when we speak of them. With a sudden unpleasant twinge in his stomach, Hibiki remembered how Mewtwo had reacted upon hearing Kenta's plan to spread Master Balls through the trainer population. But we won't use them to capture any more legendary Pokemon, I swear, he cried. Kenta only wanted to get back Pokemon that had already been taken from their trainers by our government. If we don't, they'll end up becoming machines of war. Now it was Belle's turn to give Hibiki the curious look. Oh? So you need a creature like me to play a part in this? Hibiki shied from her. You don't have to, he mumbled. You shouldn't have to. Now that I've seen how this has gone, I'll see if I can convince Ein to let you go. This was a bad idea. Through Belle's ever-present glare came a sudden beaming smile. No bargaining for my freedom? She asked, though it was more of a statement than a question. Just like that, you would remove my shackles? Hibiki shrugged. Yeah, someone like you doesn't belong in a Master Ball. It's the right thing to do. The Phoenix beamed, and the light around her seemed to grow warmer and friendlier. Then I shall do the right thing to you as well. A half-hour later, Hibiki, Kenta, and Ein stood alone at the eastern gates of Mahogany Town, watching as a rainbow lined the sky above them. At its highest end, disappearing into the clouds, was a golden bird bound south. Once the rainbow was faded from sight, Ein sighed and turned his back, facing the road. "It's depressing to bear," he murmured, probably to himself. "You have all this brain power, work hard to make something of yourself, finally succeed, and then it turns out that your life's work was a bad choice. I didn't think I'd have to face that again, and so soon. Perhaps I'm not as smart as I thought after all." Hibiki watched as he trotted off, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders slumped low. "Are you gonna be okay?" he called after him. "Yeah, in time," Ein replied distantly as he went. "I think I'll just visit the lake, maybe skip a few stones over it. I used to enjoy that when I was little. Didn't have many chances to do it where I lived." He turned a corner and disappeared out of sight. Kenta bent down and began picking up the pieces of the smashed master ball that Ein had left behind. Hibiki knelt and helped him. "Your buddy Kurt's gonna be pissed about this. He'll get over it. In the end, Ho-Oh helped us after all." Kenta's voice was steady, but as Hibiki looked up at him, he saw an expression he had never seen on his brother before. It was the look of deep hurt that appears fleetingly on the face of a small child just before bursting into tears. Only Kenta's eyes were already red underneath, as though he had recently finished crying. "Kenta?" Hibiki said, putting a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Are you okay?" It was a mindless question. In that moment, Kenta looked more broken than the fragments of Ein's master ball. "Okay?" he echoed in a croaking voice. Kenta gave a hiccuping cough, swallowed twice, and brushed his cheek. "You know the answer to that. I can't hide it from you any longer." Immediately, Hibiki felt the tender wish to comfort him, and folded an arm around his older brother's shoulder. They both sat down on the ground, looking at the fragments still scattered in the dust. "So you're not okay," he said as gently as he could. "But I've been with you through your low points before. We've always managed to bounce back together when the going got tough." "Maybe not this time." Kenta gave a shuddering sigh. Now Hibiki felt his brother's arm on his own shoulder. "I wanted to make it to the end. I still want to see it through. But Hibiki, I am just so tired." Hibiki said nothing, but gave his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. The corner of Kenta's mouth went up ever so slightly. "Thanks for trying. But it's just time I told you. I've been holding back this whole time. I've always tried to put on a brave or cheerful front to make this work, but I'm not just tired. I'm exhausted. And I act all confident, but the truth is, I don't know that I'll ever see Baku again." Kenta buried his face in his knees, and Hibiki could think of nothing but to hug him a bit tighter. Kenta exhaled a long breath. "What a pathetic spectacle, huh?" he said, his voice muffled through his pants. "But it feels good to say out loud." There were no words for the occasion. The brothers just sat there as they were and let the time pass. It might have been minutes or hours before Kenta finally spoke again. His voice was stronger and clearer, but still burdened with melancholy. "God, that hurt. To hear Ho-Oh tell me what I've always known, to get it directly from her. God, that hurt so much." He looked up at the sky, cloudless and a cool blue. "I saw her once before this. Or maybe it wasn't her, but a different one. But back then, it filled me with inspiration, made me believe I could do anything." With a final deep inhale and exhale, Kenta reached out and grabbed up the rest of the Master Ball's fragments, then straightened to his standing position. Hibiki came up with him. Kenta looked at him, and there was a new resolve in his face. "Hey, bro, promise me something." Hibiki snapped to attention. "Sure, what?" "Promise me that you'll make the Pokemon trainer journey. She said you had a heart of gold. If you live out your dream, I'm certain you'll do greater things than I ever did." Hibiki's eyes widened. "Greater than you, Kenta? How can you expect that of me? I don't believe there's a greater trainer than you." "Then make it so. I'll do what I can to make it happen." Kenta held Hibiki's arm firmly, standing straight and tall, as if already swearing an oath of his own. "Kenta," Hibiki looked away. "You know I can't promise what I don't have the assurance to make happen." He met Kenta's pleading eyes again. "But I will do it if I can. No vows or anything like that. Just let my yes be a yes."